It's December 10th, 2016. We're in Toronto, Canada, where the MLS Cup Final between Toronto FC and the Seattle Sounders is tied in the 108th minute. Although that might be about to change, as Toronto's Jozy Altidore soars to meet a cross from Tosaint Ricketts. Before Altidore delivers a potential championship-winning header, we should recall the paths that converged on this moment and meet the people who will dictate its critical outcome. We'll need to rewind. Before we get to this scoring chance, you'll notice that deep into extra time, the ball has yet to find net. You could have watched an entire Richard Linklater movie without missing a goal. That's probably got something to do with these sleeves and these gloves and these fans dressed for tobogganing. It's cold as fuck out here. It is, after all, Toronto in the middle of December. This particular circumstance doesn't have much precedent. Toronto FC formed before the 2007 MLS season. Typical of an expansion team, TFC failed to reach the postseason for their first 8 years of existence. They played their first playoff game last season in Montreal and took a swift knockout blow from the rival Impact. To date, this building, BMO Field, has hosted exactly one playoff game. That was in 2010, back when MLS hosted its cup final at neutral sites, Super Bowl style. And I will note that match between Colorado and Dallas was in November, at a relatively balmy 45 degrees Fahrenheit. Since then, MLS has pushed the playoffs later in the calendar and pushed its championship cup to the home stadium of the finalist with the better record. So yeah, here we are. It's dropped to 23 degrees Fahrenheit, or -5 Celsius, with an extra blast of wind chill off Lake Ontario right next door. Brutal soccer conditions, although survivors of the 20-degree 2013 Cup in Kansas City would have me remind you this isn't the coldest one ever. But this frigid occasion is a joyous one. After all, Toronto could win a cup final at home after 9 years without even hosting their own playoff game. Clearly, this was a special season, but it didn't always seem that way. Toronto solidified its core and reached playoff caliber thanks to some big 2015 transfers. That's when Jozy Altidore came on board. After a teenaged pro debut in MLS, the American striker had played abroad for nearly a decade. Altidore received plenty of offers to stay in Europe, but his USMNT pal Michael Bradley helped convince him to give Toronto a try. And Italian playmaker Sebastian Giovinco brought Toronto even more firepower. Giovinco's 23 goals won him the 2015 MLS Golden Boot and League MVP, and helped carry Toronto to that first ever Cup playoff berth. But despite some additions on defense, this season looked like a step backward. In March and April, BMO Field was under construction, increasing capacity to over 30,000 fans, among other improvements. But when home reopened in May, the club's performance wasn't exactly earning maximum attendance. A string of poor results sunk Toronto in the Eastern Conference table. The injury bug found Altidore, then Giovinco, then Bradley too, and Toronto fans genuinely feared a missed postseason. But Altidore returned in late July, and so did Toronto's juice. Altidore's scoring commanded a blistering month of August with only one loss, a feisty, controversial 1-0 defeat against the despised Montreal Impact. Even with some spottier late-season results, TFC had enough momentum for their best ever finish and a return to the playoffs. In the knockout round here in Toronto, Altidore put the icing on the Reds' first ever playoff victory by salvaging this kinda missed connection with Giovinco. In leg 1 of the conference semifinal against NYCFC, Altidore was the first to break through. Right place, right time to clean up a mess. Toronto won 2-0. In the second leg at Yankee Stadium, another Jozy goal helped Toronto absolutely wreck shit to advance with ease. But then came the final boss in the East, the Impact, a fierce, Canadian-flavored conference final, like spicy maple syrup. Is that a thing? Spicy maple syrup? Oh wow, that is a thing. I bet that's good. Anyway, the conference final started horribly for Toronto. Not long after halftime of the first leg in Montreal, the Reds stared down a 3-0 deficit. To salvage some hopes of advancing, Toronto had to make up ground before heading home, and Altidore was the first to push things in that direction with this nifty header in a similar position to where we find him right now. Minutes later, Michael Bradley added another away goal, but Toronto still returned home needing to win in front of their massive crowd. Their tiebreaker, away goals, slipped away pretty quickly. Altidore's noggin struck yet again to make the score 2-1 in the first half, but Montreal squirted in a second away goal soon after the break. Nick Hagglund headed in the extra goal Toronto needed, so regular time finished with a dead-even aggregate score. Someone would have to blow this thing open in extra time. And Toronto did it. First with another well-placed farhead, and then with national hero Tosaint Ricketts taking a slide on the slick pitch. This building absolutely erupted.
It's Tosaint Ricketts! It's 2 goals in 2 minutes!
Finalists. And you will note the thread tying all those games together. Jozy Altidore scored in each playoff match. He's the top goal scorer in these Cup playoffs with 5 balls in the net. Obviously, Altidore hasn't given us his regular goal yet today. He had a chance almost instantly after kickoff but missed wide. And 90 minutes later, he very nearly got his head on this deflected corner before the keeper punched it away. Early in extra time, Benoit Cheroux had Altidore to his right but took the shot himself, and that too got stopped. So this perfect cross from Ricketts represents Altidore and Toronto's chance to finally break through. Jozy can keep his streak alive and probably secure a title for these 36,000 home fans with one more well-placed header. But before we see that, we ought to explain the other half of this story and this double bagel scoreline. Superficially similar, but quite different beneath the surface. Over the years, Seattle has been home to 3 men's soccer teams called the Sounders. This latest one joined an expanding MLS just a couple seasons after Toronto. Unlike their current co-finalist, Seattle hit the ground running. Every year they've existed, the Sounders have made the playoffs. And every year they've made the playoffs, the Sounders have flamed out. Before today, Seattle hadn't even played in a Cup Final. Their most brutal shortfall happened not long ago, in 2014. One of the highest scoring teams in MLS had a shot at an unprecedented treble. They won the cross-league US Open Cup, they won the Supporters' Shield by topping the regular season league table, and they needed to advance past the equally dangerous LA Galaxy to get a shot at perfection. But Seattle failed to score in the away leg of the conference final, then failed to score enough at home. Their best season ever ended with a fizzle, and that was just the beginning of the slide. 2015 brought a ridiculous volume and variety of devastating injury-related absences, including offensive stars like Obafemi Martins and Clint Dempsey. This was also the season Dempsey drew a long US Open Cup suspension, effectively a lifetime ban from that competition, for shredding a referee's notebook. Weird season. And this season started even worse, with centerpiece Obafemi Martins forcing his way out of MLS entirely. On the field, Seattle opened with a whimper and kept plummeting into the summer. By the end of July, the Sounders sat near the very bottom of the Western Conference, well on pace for their first ever losing record. It got bad enough that the Sounders felt compelled to pull the plug on the only manager they'd ever known. Siggy Schmid was fired, and his longtime assistant, Seattle fixture Brian Schmetzer, stepped up as interim. Around the same time, Seattle acquired midfielder Nicolas Lodeiro, who helped the Sounders finally pile some points on that sorry record. The rally lost some steam when a heart condition pulled Dempsey off the field for the rest of the year. But, thanks to Lodeiro and outstanding rookie Jordan Morris, the Sounders kept cooking and climbed back into playoff contention. It went so well that Schmetzer earned the full-time job at season's end. And after Nelson Valdez's 88th minute header got Seattle past a tense knockout stage versus KC, Lodeiro scored just enough to carry the Sounders through the rest of the playoffs. Especially without Dempsey, this is not the high-scoring side we've seen in prior years. They've gotten here with defense and terrific timing, although this match is really stretching it. Here is a genuinely astounding number for you. 108 minutes into the MLS Cup, Seattle has 0 shots on goal. None. And we've seen little to suggest they've got one coming, especially with Eric Freeberg and Valdez subbed off for injuries. Seattle's only prayer of stealing this championship with 0 shots on goal is surviving the next dozen or so minutes unscathed to break a tie with penalty kicks. But Altidore is in midair with a great chance to ruin that plan. Only one man can stop him. So let's meet the goalkeeper, Stefan Frei. Born in Switzerland and educated at Cal, Frei joined MLS as a member of the other team. Toronto drafted Frei in the 2009 MLS Superdraft. Frei immediately became the Reds' regular keeper and held his starting spot for 3 solid seasons. But injuries pulled Frei away from the field and lost him his regular starting job. After missing the whole 2012 season recovering from surgery, Frei expected to reclaim his role in 2013, but broke his nose in a fucking preseason game at Disney World, and while recovering from that, lost his regular starting job yet again. It just wasn't working, so before the 2014 season, Toronto traded Frei for a draft pick to the Sounders, where he immediately took over as one of the league's premier goalkeepers. Frei has been a rock for Seattle ever since, although this time last year, he was front and center for their playoff heartbreak. In the 2015 postseason, Seattle got revenge on LA to advance out of the knockout round, then beat FC Dallas 2-1 in the home leg of the conference semifinal. So all the Sounders had to do in the second leg was force a draw, and in stoppage time, they were well on their way, aggregate lead intact. But when a late corner skittered through a crowd, then back toward goal, Frei could do nothing but freeze and watch it float past. Frei couldn't stop FC Dallas in penalties, and another Sounders playoff run went down the drain. But that didn't break Frei's stride this season. He anchored an improved defense with 8 clean sheets in the regular season, then followed that with 3 more in the 5 playoff matches before today, including revenge against FC Dallas. Obviously, that has continued tonight and with no margin for error. Frei has had to deliver a perfect MVP caliber performance for Seattle to have any prayer of surviving their utter lack of productive scoring chances. But keeping that prayer alive isn't looking probable. Not with Jozy Altidore in perfect position to score for Toronto like he has in every match this postseason, all but cementing a victory in this slog of a match and a first ever title for these 36,000 frigid fans. Stefan Frei is the last line of defense against his former team, stuck in a tough spot like he was at the end of last season's disappointing finish. To maintain Seattle's chances of ending their long streak of heartbreak, Frei will have to create magic out of thin air. Welcome to a moment in history.
Went to ground early. Now the cross out to Altidore. What a save by Frei! Wow!
And I won't leave you hanging. That incredible save gave us penalties, and penalties gave us a new, unlikely champion behind MVP Stefan Frei. Thank you so much for watching. Click around a little if you want to see more soccer stuff, more rewinders. We got all kinds of videos. You'll find something you like.